Tune Review, print speaking to the blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the National Podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @TuneReview, that is @ CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@tunereview.com, that is INFORMATION@CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
This is from The National on Friday the 19th of May 2023, from the Politics section. Scottish Greens. New report shows need to halt Rosebank exploration. This article is written by James Walker. The Scottish Greens have said that a new report underlines the urgent need to end new oil and gas exploration. The new report from the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, published on Wednesday, indicates there's now a 66% chance we will pass the 1.5 Celsius global warming threshold between now and 2027, the first time in human history. The WMO also said there is a 98% chance of the hottest year on record being broken during that time. Responding to the report, Doug Parr, Chief Scientist at Greenpeace UK, said the revelations must be a rallying cry to intensify global efforts on tackling the climate crisis. With the decision on the Rosebank oil field imminent, the Scottish Greens Environment spokesperson Mark Ruskell has also challenged the Prime Minister to look young people in the eye while he tries to justify the climate chaos it would cause. The MSP for Mid-Scotland and Fife said, "This is even worse than we thought. This shocking report underlines the need for urgent, transformative and global climate action. With temperatures and seas rising, we have no time to waste. Anything else would be a total abdication of our responsibility to future generations and would consign millions to an early grave. We need a dramatic shift away from the reckless and dangerous policies that have brought us to this point. Yet, even while we're right on the edge of disaster, climate-wrecking governments, like the one in Downing Street, are pushing for even more oil and gas exploration." The decision on the Rosebank oil field is imminent. I challenge the PM to look young people in the eye while he tries to justify the 500 million barrels that it would ensure. It would mean climate chaos. With a ban on new incineration, a groundbreaking just transition fund, and action to introduce free bus travel and curb train fares, Scotland is leading the UK, and we need to go even further. That means building on our successes, but it also means securing the powers of a normal, independent country rather than being at the mercy of a Tory government that has shown a total disregard for our environment. That article was written by James Walker. This is from The National on Friday the 19th of May 2023, from the news section. Scottish North Sea sites identified for carbon capture. This article is written by Hamish Morrison. Large parts of the North Sea bed have been identified for offshore carbon storage, with 20 sites awarded licences. The underground sites equate to an area slightly larger than Yorkshire, some 12,000 square kilometres. Some are located off the northeast of Scotland, while others are off the shores of Teesside, Liverpool and Lincolnshire. The North Sea Transition Authority, NSTA, says the sites could one day store 10% of the UK's annual CO2 emissions. The first injection into the subsurface storage areas could come this decade. As well as geology, the sites were selected based on their proximity to existing offshore infrastructure. However, further approvals will need to be sought before any carbon capture and storage process can go ahead. NSTA Chief Executive Stuart Payne said, "This is an exciting and important day. As a nation, we cannot meet our decarbonisation targets without carbon storage. This is net zero delivery in action. The awards we offer today could store around 10% of the UK's emissions, and through our engagement with applicants, we will have committed work plans in place, such as seismic surveys and drilling of wells. We are working with industry to move at real pace." The UK's offshore waters remain the crown jewel of our energy mix, providing energy security, emissions reduction, and carbon storage. We look forward to working with these licensees to make these projects a reality as soon as possible and to opening more carbon storage rounds in the near future. My thanks to our teams and industry for their great work, but this is just the beginning. Energy Efficiency Lord Callahan said, "Thanks to the government's unprecedented £20 billion investment in early-stage carbon capture and storage development, we are in prime position to take advantage of the geological goldmine beneath our shores to store CO2 and grow our economy by becoming world leaders in this developing industry." These new licences, together with fresh powers granted to NSTA within the landmark Energy Bill, will develop our most comprehensive picture yet of UK's carbon capture and storage potential, strengthening our energy security and cutting emissions while creating thousands of skilled British jobs. That article was written by Hamish Morrison. This is from The National on Friday the 19th of May 2023, from the news section. STUC to demonstrate in Erskine against far-right Homeland Group. This exclusive article is written by Judith Duffy. A demonstration to oppose the far right will take place outside a hotel used to house asylum seekers this weekend, with calls for an all-out opposition to neo-Nazis. The Scottish Trades Union Conference, STUC, together with group Stand Up to Racism Scotland, has organised a rally on Sunday from 11 a.m. outside the Moor 2 Glasgow River Hotel in Erskine. The action is being backed by prominent names including writer Irvine Welsh, comedian Frankie Boyle and actor David Heyman. The hotel, which has been used by the Home Office to house asylum seekers, has been targeted by far-right extremist groups since early February, with the STUC warning they are seeking to demonise refugees. However, the demonstrations held by far-right group Patriotic Alternative, which subsequently split into an organisation called Homeland, have been regularly countered by trade unions, community and civic groups. The rally on Sunday will collect food and clothes donations to be given to local community groups within the area. An open letter which gives wholehearted support to the demonstration and calls for opposition to the hate-mongering of the Homeland Group has also been signed by singers Eddie Reader and Deacon Blues Ricky Ross and Lorraine McIntosh, along with still game actor Gavin Mitchell, comedian Susie McCabe and author Darren McGarvey. "We commend the local residents who have made a stand against them," the letter states. "People fleeing war and conflict should be welcomed here in Scotland. We believe that the decent majority in this country want to do exactly that." STUC General Secretary Ros Foyer said, "The UK government's policy on refugees is a disgrace, as it is nothing more than a dispersal scheme. The Erskine community and communities across Scotland are subject to a cost of living crisis and cuts to vital services. It is government, not refugees, who bear the responsibility for that. The far right and neo-Nazi thugs like Homeland can be left in no doubt that when communities and working people mobilise to oppose their racist and divisive attitudes, we will be by their side. This Sunday we're sending a clear message that Scotland welcomes those fleeing war and persecution, that we can be a safe haven for those in their hour of need when they need it most. She added, time and time again, the trade union movement and anti-racist groups like Stand Up to Racism have driven out the poison of fascism from our communities. This weekend will be no different, and we would appeal to anyone who shares in that goal to rally at the Moor2 Hotel from 11 a.m. this Sunday. That article was written by Judith Duffy.
From the National, Monday the 22nd of May 2023, from the Culture section, an article first published on Sunday the 21st of May 2023, Beyoncé laughs off onstage blunder at sold out Edinburgh show. Report by Lucy Garcia. Beyoncé laughed off an onstage mistake during her sell-out performance in Edinburgh on Saturday. The music megastar was performing to a crowd of more than 50,000 people in her first appearance in Scotland since 2003, when she slipped up during a performance of Heated, a song from her Renaissance album, which is also the name of her current world tour. Heated makes multiple references to French fashion icon Coco Chanel. But in performing the song on stage at Murrayfield, Beyoncé slipped and sang instead Coco Canal. The star giggled and stopped singing after the error, but the crowd kept on with the song regardless, waiting for her to rejoin them. One fan wrote on Twitter after the mistake, Beyoncé gagging herself after making a mistake with the Heated lyrics. Well, if Beyoncé says it's Coco Canal, then it's Coco Canal, period. The unofficial Renaissance World Tour fan account shared the video, writing, Beyoncé has the cutest reaction to messing up in the Heated verse tonight in Edinburgh. Even her flops are legendary, another fan added. Beyoncé praised the crowd at the Edinburgh show for bringing so much energy despite the heavy rainfall. She said at the close of her performance that she can't wait to come back to Scotland. Wearing a black and yellow outfit seen as a nod to her Queen Bee nickname, Beyoncé told the audience, I hope you guys are feeling joy and love. I hope you all feel safe tonight. I hope you all feel free and liberated. Thank you all so much for being such an incredible audience in this rain. I love you all. Fans of the singer hailed her as a true class act after the show, which they called a once in a lifetime experience. During the second show of her Renaissance World Tour, she performed hit tracks from her dance music focused 7th studio album, including Alien Superstar and Cuff It. The singer also dove into her back catalogue as she delivered powerful renditions of classic songs like Crazy in Love, Run the World, Girls, Partition, and Love on Top. And that article was by Lucy Garcia. From the National, Monday the 22nd of May 2023, from the news section, Buchanan Street, teens charged for alleged racist attack. Report by James Walker. 3 teenagers have been charged by police over an alleged racist attack in Glasgow city centre on 2 Indian students. The 2 women claimed they were attacked on Buchanan Street on May the 15th without any provocation, according to Indian news website The Quint, who first reported the alleged attack. They also alleged they were subjected to racist and xenophobic slurs. Police Scotland said officers were called to a report of a disturbance around 10:55 p.m. on Monday, May the 15th. A 14-year-old male youth and 2 15-year-old female youths have been charged in connection with the alleged incident. Reports will be submitted to the Procurator Fiscal and Youth Justice Management Service, police added. A Police Scotland spokesperson said, around 10:55 p.m. on Monday, 15th of May 2023, police were called to a report of a disturbance on Buchanan Street, Glasgow. A 14-year-old male youth and 2 15-year-old female youths have been charged in connection with the incident. Reports will be submitted to the Procurator Fiscal and Youth Justice Management Service. And that report was by James Walker. From the National, Monday the 22nd of May 2023. From the politics section, Jeremy Hunt gets warning from Statistics Watchdog over accuracy. Report by Steph Braun. Jeremy Hunt has been pulled up by the official Statistics Watchdog over inaccuracy in his claims about public debt. The Chancellor sent out a tweet on April the 25th which claimed public debt levels would fall in the coming years when, in fact, they are simply forecast to rise less steeply than previously expected. According to The Guardian, the head of the UK Statistics Authority, Sir Robert Choate, is now writing to Hunt and the Treasury to warn them about the accuracy after Labour MP Angela Eagle made a complaint about the post. Hunt said the government had made progress on public finances, tweeting, "By 2027-28, headline debt levels are reduced by £53.7 billion. Former Treasury Minister Eagle then wrote to Choate, noting that the Office for Budget Responsibility, OBR, forecasts indicate that the public debt will rise between now and 2027-28, including a £90 billion increase from 2026-27 alone. She said Hunt was referring to a fall in OBR's current projection for headline debt in 2027-28, compared with the same forecast in last year's autumn statement, expressing concern that the government was using misleading statistics. In a reply, Choate said Treasury officials had confirmed that this was what the tweet referred to, a reduction in the size of the forecast increase of debt, not a fall in the debt itself. As you suggest, some readers of the tweet may have assumed that the Chancellor was referring to the forecast change in public sector net debt between the last full financial year and 2027-28, he wrote. Greater clarity and context would have avoided this confusion. The Office for Statistics Regulation, the regulatory arm of UKSA, has therefore spoken with officials at HM Treasury to emphasise the importance of consistently adopting a transparent and accessible approach to communicating statistics and data in line with our guidance on intelligence transparency. The Treasury said it would take necessary action, and that report was by Steph Braun. From the National, Monday the 22nd of May 2023, from the politics section, Keith Brown in clash with BBC presenter over interruptions. Report by Adam Robertson. The SNP's deputy leader was involved in a fiery clash with a Good Morning Scotland presenter as he slammed him for interrupting him. Keith Brown appeared on the BBC show to discuss the upcoming Special Independence Convention due to take place in Dundee on June 24. Host Laura Maxwell asked if a de facto referendum on independence was a contradiction if the SNP were looking for a legally binding route towards Indiref 2. Brown replied, "Well, let's look at what's going to be on the agenda, and on the agenda will be, as well as other proposals, other ideas, the ways in which we can explore, the ways in which we can realise Scottish democracy. A de facto referendum will be on that agenda. That is a legal route towards independence." At this point, Maxwell interjected to say a de facto referendum would not move the fight for Indiref 2 forward 1 inch. The SNP's deputy leader started to reply, saying it was a legal route and that it should be considered. Maxwell then once again interjected to ask how it was legal, and Brown replied, "I heard your interview earlier. I didn't hear you interrupting Craig Hoy repeatedly in the way you're interrupting me. If you could just let me finish the answer to the first question, I'm happy to answer the second question." Brown hit back at criticisms made by Hoy and the Scottish Tories that the SNP would always put their constitutional obsession above Scotland's real priorities. Maxwell continued to press Brown on how a de facto referendum would help move independence forward. Brown added, "The answer to that question is it has to be put to the UK government. Why do they want to deny democracy? In the last few days, we've seen Polynesia exerting its right to self-determination. The response of the French government is to take note of that and try and move forward. It's the UK government that's acting peculiarly, wrongly, and in my view in this regard, like a rogue state. We're trying to find a democratic route to express the wishes of the people of Scotland, as if endorsed in repeated elections, and that, to me, is entirely legitimate." On claims from the Scottish Conservatives that the SNP should be focused on the cost of living crisis, Brown said this was a false dichotomy. He continued, "The idea that people in Scotland are not suffering, having to pay up to 20% food inflation, having interest rate increased upon interest rate increase, seeing their mortgages going up, seeing energy costs, the complete mishandling of the energy market. These are present and real things for the people in Scotland, and one of the routes out of that is to be an independent country. He said it was perfectly legitimate for a party that won an election on a promise of independence to hold such a convention as the one in June. And that report was by Adam Robertson. From the National, Monday the 22nd of May 2023, from the Politics section. Explained. Margaret Ferrier, will the MP face a by-election in Rutherglen and Hamilton West? By Adam Robertson. MP Margaret Ferrier has lost her appeal to have her common suspension overturned, meaning a by-election in her constituency now looks likely. The Rutherglen and Hamilton West MP broke COVID rules in 2020 by travelling on a train from London to Scotland having tested positive. A standards watchdog eventually recommended she be banned from the Commons for 30 days, a punishment Ferrier has failed to have overturned. So, what happens now and how is a by-election triggered? What is recall? Essentially, this is the process by which constituents can remove their MP out with the normal election period. In order for this to happen, one of three requirements must be met. An MP is imprisoned following a conviction, although anything over 12 months leads to automatic removal. An MP is suspended from the House for more than 10 sitting days or 14 non-sitting days. An MP makes false or misleading allowance claims. What is a recall petition? If one of the previous conditions is met, the Speaker must notify the local returning officer, and this subsequently leads to the opening of a recall petition. Constituents have 6 weeks to sign this, and should 10% of registered voters do so, a by-election is called. Could Ferrier still contest her seat? Yes, the sitting MP is still able to contest in the by-election. Over the past 4 general elections, the Rutherglen and Hamilton West seat has swung between the SNP and Labour co-op candidates. In the 2017 election, Gerard Killen was elected after defeating Ferrier by 19,101 votes to 18,836. Ferrier then retained her seat in 2019 by a more comfortable margin of 23,775 votes to Killen's 18,545. And that piece was by Adam Robertson. From the National, Monday the 22nd of May 2023, from the news section. Scotland Office Director brushes off Independence Minister question. Report by Xander Eliards. Douglas Ross's questions were brushed off by the Scottish Office top civil servant as he sought to draw out criticism of the Minister for Independence. The Scottish Tory leader was told that the appointment was entirely for Humza Yousaf's government to decide and not something that a neutral civil servant would comment on. Ross had used his time at the committee meeting hearing at Westminster to bring up SNP MSP Jamie Hepburn's role in the Scottish Government, which was created by the new First Minister after he took office. Ross aimed a question at Lynn MacDonald, a civil servant who is acting director of the Scotland Office. He said, JP Marks, the head civil servant in the Scottish Government, has dismissed some of the criticism of Humza Yousaf appointing a Minister for Independence. As the head civil servant, acting at the moment in the Scottish Office, what is your view on the First Minister appointing a Minister for Independence? MacDonald said she would not like to comment because it is entirely up to them to appoint who they want as a minister. Expanding on the role of the civil service, she went on to say, we work under a code that allows us to work on non-political matters. Every civil servant is aware of that code and aware of how to go about it if they have any problems with it. As a lead civil servant, as the person who looks after my own office, I make it very clear with my staff, if and when they feel uncomfortable or that the work they're being asked to do is not within that code, then they absolutely have a right to come to me and speak to me about it. I'm very pleased to say that's never happened. To my knowledge, ministers are more than aware of when it's political and when it's within our remit, and it has worked well. I've been here for 36 years and I've never had occasion to raise it as an issue. Ross said he understood that MacDonald had to take a neutral view, and so asked Scottish Secretary Alistair Jack the same question. The top Tory MP said he thought taxpayers' money could be better used elsewhere. Jack was appearing at Westminster's Scottish Affairs Committee alongside his junior ministers in the Scotland Office, MP John Lamont and Peer Malcolm Offord. Jack's hearing seemed to go in and out during the meeting. At times he had to delegate the answering of questions to Offord or Lamont, as he claims his tinnitus meant he couldn't hear the question. At other times, he stepped in to answer a question in Lamont or Offord's place, his hearing having apparently been restored. The Scottish Secretary was quizzed early on in the session on the language which he chooses to use to talk about the Scottish Government, despite simultaneously claiming he was aiming to foster good relations with his Edinburgh counterparts. Committee Chair Pete Worship said, "I don't think that intergovernment relations have been in such a low ebb. They seem to be characterised by mistrust, by never-ending conflict, and a sense of diktat. What are you doing personally, what is your office doing, to try and improve the atmosphere and the culture and operation working between the two governments?" Jack said, "I think what I've been trying to bring to the job is honesty and a clear position from the UK government so that the Scottish government know where we are in positions, not to fudge any issues. It's not the way I do things." Wishart pushed, "I wonder how helpful you think like destroy the UK, that type of language is." "I think it's honest," Jack responded. "I said at the beginning I'm honest. It's an honest position. They want to destroy the United Kingdom." Wishart said, "There's been honest and is using language which is not in the least bit constructive." The SNP MP said that Jack's comment was likely to make the situation worse rather than improve the frosty relations between the UK and Scottish governments. But Jack refused to budge, initially suggesting he did not know what comment Wishart was referring to, before going on, "I think if we come at this honestly, and we acknowledge that they want to destroy the United Kingdom, they want to bring it to an end, they want to break it, whatever language you want to use, and they know that I want to strengthen it, we then find the bit in the middle where we can work together." Speaking later in the committee, Ross brought up the exchange again. He asked Jack if he thought Nicola Sturgeon's language around the Gender Reform Bill, in which he said some of its opponents were homophobic and transphobic, had contributed to the climate. Jack gave a standard response to the solved question, saying the former First Minister's language had been inflammatory. "I think that sort of language is very inflammatory," he said. And that report was by Xander Elliards. From the National, Monday the 22nd of May 2023, from the news section, Scottish wildcat kittens born at Highland Wildlife Park. Report by Adam Robertson. 5 critically endangered Scottish wildcat kittens have been born at the Highland Wildlife Park in Kingussie. Keepers at the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, RZSS, say they are doing well and they will be able to determine the sex of the animals when they receive their first health checks. Animal Collection Manager at Highland Wildlife Park, Keith Gilchrist, said, "We are thrilled to welcome 5 Scottish wildcat kittens born to Mum Tala and Dad Blair on April 2nd, 2023. This is Tala's first litter, and she's taking to motherhood brilliantly and being very attentive. The kittens are doing extremely well and are getting more confident every day. It has been fantastic to see them growing curious about their surroundings and start exploring their home in Wildcat Wood with Tala by their side. Wildcats are Scotland's most iconic animal, but, sadly, also one of our most endangered. This incredible species is on the brink of extinction due to historic habitat loss and hunting. More recently, they have become increasingly threatened by interbreeding with domestic cats. RZSS leads partnership projects saving wildcats, working with national and international experts to restore Scotland's critically endangered wildcat population by breeding and releasing them into the Cairngorms Connect area of the Cairngorms National Park while mitigating the threats they may face. Wildcats born at the charity's Offshore Conservation Breeding for Release Centre, based at Highland Wildlife Park in 2022, are due to be released later this year. The kittens, which are on show to the public at Wildcat Wood, are managed as part of the UK breeding programme held by RZSS and could eventually play an important role in the recovery efforts in Scotland. Keith added, "It's an incredibly exciting time for wildcats in Scotland, and we are delighted the kittens will help engage visitors with this iconic species and inspire more people to protect, value and love nature." Visitors can spot Tala and her 5 kittens exploring the Highland Wildlife Park's onshore enclosures in Wildcat Wood. And that report was by Adam Robertson.
From the National, Tuesday the 23rd of May 2023, from the news section. BBC presenter called out for unbelievable Margaret Ferrier error by Gregor Young. A BBC presenter has been called out for their unbelievable mistake after they referred to Margaret Ferrier as an SNP MP. It comes after the Rutherglen and Hamilton West MP lost an appeal to have her Commons suspension overturned. Ferrier was indeed elected to the House of Commons in 2019 as an SNP MP, but now sits as an independent. She was found to have damaged the reputation of the Commons and to have put people at risk after taking part in a debate and travelling by train while she had COVID in September 2020. However, during Tuesday's Good Morning Scotland programme, presenter Lucy White said SNP MP Margaret Ferrier has lost her appeal against a proposed 30-day ban from the House of Commons for breaching COVID rules. In terms of the SNP at Westminster, the Margaret Ferrier row rumbles on. Popular Twitter account MSM Monitor retweeted the clip with the caption, "For a presenter on the flagship morning news programme not to know that Margaret Ferrier is no longer an SNP MP is unbelievable. It's as incredulous as not knowing Nicola Sturgeon is no longer the FM." Another Twitter user said they clocked the mistake right away. A by-election in Ferrier's constituency is now looking increasingly likely after she failed to have her suspension overturned. Should 10% of registered voters in Rutherglen and Hamilton West choose to sign a recall petition, then a by-election is called. Appearing on Good Morning Scotland, SNP MP David Linden said he was confident the party could win the seat as he called on Ferrier to stand down. "I think I was the first person on the airwaves the night the Margaret Ferrier story broke, and I said then I thought her position was untenable, and my position on that has not changed," he said. He added that voters were rightly annoyed that an MP meant to be voting on COVID guidelines had been found to have broken them. Linden continued, "The people in Rutherglen and Hamilton West should have an MP representing them so that the SNP stands full square behind the local campaign there. We look forward to taking our message to people on the doorsteps that we are laser focused on the cost of living crisis." This article was by Gregor Young. From The National, Tuesday the 23rd of May 2023, from the news section. Bear Grylls discovers epic links to Robert the Bruce, by Adam Robertson. Adventurer Bear Grylls has said it was epic to discover he is related to a Scottish king while filming Who Do You Think You Are? Grylls travelled to Scotland to find out about his connection to Robert the Bruce, explaining he did it for his mother. Talking to Radio Times about his appearance in the latest series of the BBC Ancestry show, Grylls said, "My mother has always really wanted me to do it because she had hoped we were related to someone royal. She's now 82, and my sister took me on one side and said, 'Mate, you have to do it.'" He added that he had always loved Scotland, as it was where he had met his wife Shara. "As soon as I was told we were going to Scotland, I thought it was awesome because it's where my heart's always been." Robert the Bruce was the Scottish king who defeated Edward II at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314. Grylls described him as a clansman who rewrote the rules of conventional soldiering. He said, "He was an inspirational leader who spent time in the great outdoors. He came back transformed and renewed. It was epic for me to follow that and to understand the connecting spirit through our lives." Grylls also discovers that he is related to Archibald Campbell, 1st Marquess of Argyll, who was beheaded in 1661 for supporting Oliver Cromwell. Campbell resisted religious changes that had been brought in by Charles I, and his life was brought to an end when he faced the Scottish Maiden, an early form of guillotine. It had taken some persuading for Grylls to get on board with the show, which he had been turning down for more than a decade. He told Radio Times, "I just didn't want to do it. I don't like doing TV, and I didn't have an aspiration to do the show." He said he had always struggled with doing TV, but has often found strength and resilience in pushing through. He said, "You can be good at something and still struggle. I used to get annoyed about the fact that I found it difficult, but now I believe a sort of natural tension is quite good." Having finished the filming, Grills now thinks that the show was made for me. He said, "All of it now makes sense. Seeing people who took the road less trodden, who never gave up, people who valued scouting and family." The new episode of Who Do You Think You Are will air on June the 15th on BBC One. This article was by Adam Robertson. From The National, Tuesday the 23rd of May 2023, from the news section. M8 crash. Man, 30, dies after crashing into barriers. By Rebecca Newlands. A man has died in a crash on a major motorway. The 30-year-old was driving a Renault Captur on the M8 westbound in the early hours of Monday morning when he crashed into the barriers. It occurred near junction 31 between Bishopton and Langbank at around 1:50 a.m, and we previously reported that the M8 was closed in both directions. The man was the only occupant of the car and he died at the scene. According to updates from Traffic Scotland, the road reopened at about 9:15 a.m. on Monday. A report will be submitted to the Procurator Fiscal. Police are investigating the collision and are urging any witnesses or those with dashcam footage to get in touch. Sergeant Kenim Maloney of the Road Policing Unit said a number of other motorists who saw the crash stopped and tried to help the man until emergency services arrived, but unfortunately he did not survive the crash. Although we have spoken to those who assisted at the time, we are still keen to hear from anyone who may have been on the M8 westbound that morning between 1:40 a.m. and 1:50 a.m, who may have seen the car driving on the road prior to the crash, or the collision itself, and who has not yet come forward. Dashcam video would also be helpful, as it may have captured footage that could help our investigation. Any information can be passed to officers via 101, quoting reference number 0217 of Monday, May the 22nd, 2023. That article was by Rebecca. From The National, Tuesday the 23rd of May 2023, from the news section. Scottish Tory MPs vote to include Scotland in UK anti-strike laws. By Zander Eliards. All 6 of Scotland's Tory MPs voted to ensure that the UK government's controversial anti-strike bill also impacts on workers north of the border. The Scots Conservatives, along with 276 of their colleagues, all voted down an amendment to the Strikes Minimum Service Levels Bill, which would have made it apply only to England. The legislation has been branded draconian by trade unionists, who warn that it will force workers in areas such as health and education forced to attend work or face the sack, effectively removing their right to strike. Analysis conducted by the Trades Union Congress in April found that 1 in 4 Scottish workers, around 600,000 people, could have their right to take industrial action threatened by the UK bill. But an amendment tabled in the Lords would have exempted Scotland and Wales by adding the phrase "but applies only to England" to an early part of the bill, spelling out its extent. However, that amendment, the first of 4, was rejected by Tory MPs in the Commons on Monday evening. All 6 of Scotland's Tory MPs, Alistair Jack, David de Gude, John Lamond, Douglas Ross, Andrew Bowie and David Mundell, voted to ensure the Act still applies to Scotland. The Labour, the SNP and the Lib Dems all voted to keep the exemption for Scotland and Wales in place. It fell by 288 votes to 227. The second amendment would have altered the bill in relation to work notices, the documents which the UK government will distribute ahead of planned strike action, spelling out how many workers will be required not to take part in order for minimum service levels not to be disrupted by the action. The Lords' amendment would have made it so that the work notices could not be sent out, and other powers given to ministers not exercised, unless a consultation on the potential impact of their use has been carried out. All 6 of the Scots Tory MPs joined their colleagues in voting this amendment down. The third amendment would have made it so that a person is not subject to a work notice if the person in question has not received a copy of the work notice, and further made it employers' responsibility to ensure the workers received one. This was also voted down in the Commons by the Conservatives, although Scots Tory MP David de Guid was the exception in that he did not register a vote. The final amendment would have removed a section of the bill which will punish workers and trade unions if they do not take reasonable steps to ensure that all members of the union who are identified in the work notice comply with the notice. All 6 Scots Tory MPs also voted this down. Speaking to the BBC on Tuesday morning, SNP MP David Linden hit out at the anti-trade union legislation, likening it to approaches taken in Russia, Hungary and Belarus. He said the bill could result in a power grab where the UK government is able to overrule the Scottish government in public sector industrial disputes. TUC General Secretary Paul Novak organised a rally against the bill in Parliament Square on Monday evening. The protest saw the General Secretary of the Rail, Maritime and Transport RMT Union, Mick Lynch, call for a mass campaign of workplace disobedience if the bill is enacted. "We will not allow our members to be dismissed," he said. "We will not allow our members to be disciplined. We will not obey work notices issued by the employer or issued by the government. We will defy this law. If this law comes into fruition, the TUC and all of the trade unions affiliated and every worker in this country has got to unlash a mass campaign of workplace disobedience." Labour has promised to repeal the bill if it wins the next general election, and MP Joe Stevens reiterated the promise at the rally. "If it passes on the back of Tory votes, no ifs, no buts, Labour will repeal it," she said. The politician added, "This is all about Rishi Sunak distracting from the Tory conveyor belt of crisis with a vindictive attack on working people." Speaking in the Commons, Business Minister Kevin Hollinrake claimed the Lords' amendment would have made the bill inoperable. Hollinrake said Amendment 4 ensures there can be no consequences for a worker which does not comply with a work notice. The government disagrees with this, as without such consequences an employer is powerless to manage instances of non-compliance, which will continue the disproportionate impact strikes can have on the public, severely undermining the effectiveness of this legislation. Given the amendment would make the bill ineffective, as I suspect the opposition intended, the government cannot support it. This article was by Xander Eliards.
From the National, Tuesday the 23rd of May 2023, from the Culture section, exclusive interview. I write, Robbie Morrison on new book Cast a Cold Eye, by Adam Robertson. In 2021, respected Scottish comic book writer Robbie Morrison picked up a Body Scotland's award for Best Debut Crime Novel. His brutal take took readers into 1930s Glasgow in the aftermath of the First World War, focusing on Detective Jimmy Dreghorn and his parent Bonnie, Archie McDade, as a serial killer stalks the city. The members of the Tartar Untouchables, based on when the Glasgow controversially appointed Englishman Percy Stillito as Chief Constable in 1931, who swiftly rounded up a group of the toughest officers, recruited to wage a war in crime. Now Dreghorn is back in Cast a Cold Eye. We're still in 1930s Glasgow, and a suspected IRA cell is at large. Ahead of his chat with fellow crime writer Alan Parks at this year's I Write, Morrison spoke with The National about how his family inspired the novel, and whether we might see his characters make the journey from the page to the screen. What drew you to this particular period of history? I've been fascinated with the 1930s, in Glasgow especially, for as long as I can remember. This stemmed from a combination of my family history, which is connecting to shipbuilding going back 4 generations on both sides. As well as this, I have a love for the hardboiled crime fiction of Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler, and the gangster films of Jimmy Cagney and Humphrey Bogart. These fast-talking, sharp-suited protagonists also influenced the razor gangs that terrorised certain areas during this time. What was Glasgow like during this period? Glasgow during the Great Depression was a tough, raucous city with extremes of wealth and poverty, unemployment, sectarianism, firebrand politics, and a dangerous criminal underworld. I wanted to write a story that captured the power and drama of those things, the spirit of the people and the spirit of the city, but which would also hopefully have resonance in our world now. During the 1990s, I lived opposite Central Police Headquarters on Turnbull Street, where the main characters are based. Even then, I had a loose idea for a crime series set in 1930s Glasgow. If only I'd known then where it would be set, I could have saved myself a ton of research. How did your own family history influence your writing? Dreghorn's background is partly inspired by my paternal grandfather, a boilermaker, caulker, who worked in black squads in various shipyards in the Clyde and balked for a time under the patronage of Sir Ian Cahoon, whose family home of Rossdhu, Luss, is now the Loch Lomond Golf Club. My other main character, McDade, is based upon a policeman of the period, a larger-than-life Olympic medal-winning wrestler, police heavyweight boxing champion, and champion bagpipe player. Was it easier writing a sequel given these characters are already established? In some ways, yes, because you're building upon a world and characters you've already created, but you need to be mindful of new readers. Every story is someone's first, so you have to almost reintroduce the characters and situations. Even though the books are in many respects set up as a series, each story should stand alone so it can be enjoyed without prior knowledge of previous books. Once you have characters that an audience seem to like, a lot of the fun is in building stories around them. Also, one of the good things about historical fiction is that you have the grand canvas of history to draw inspiration from. The 1930s and 40s weren't exactly uneventful, so there should be no shortage of storylines. Edge of the Grave drew upon the Great War and the Quintessel rail disaster, while Cast a Cold Eye references the partition of Ireland and the Irish Civil War. How does writing novels compare with comic book writing? There are big differences between the two mediums. However, the principles of good storytelling are the same. Comic strips are in a similar format to a film or TV script, and are at the first stage in that creative process only seen by the editor, artist and letterer. The prose in a novel has to be tighter, because that's the final product. When writing a comic script, you're aiming to fire up the artist's imagination with your descriptions of character and action. When writing a book, you aim to get readers' imaginations working in pretty much the same way. The great thing about a novel is that each reader has their own unique, personal image of the characters. As a writer, the reader's imagination is one of the most powerful tools you can have. Spark that off and you can go anywhere. Do you think there's potential for these books to be adapted to the big or small screen? I certainly do, and would obviously love to see that happen, but then I am a wee bit biased. Recently, Glasgow stood for Gotham in the Batman, and 1960s New York in the new Indiana Jones film, so it would be great to see Glasgow on screen as itself for a change, especially in all its 1930s glory. Robbie Morrison and Alan Park's I Write event will take place on May the 27th at the Mitchell Library in Glasgow. And that was an exclusive interview by Adam Robertson. From the National, Tuesday the 23rd of May 2023, from the Culture section. Exclusive. Janie Godley reveals important Nicola Sturgeon trait she admires, by Adam Robertson. Comedian and author Janie Godley has praised Nicola Sturgeon's love of reading ahead of her I Write event this week. Godley will speak out at an event chaired by the former First Minister about her debut novel Nothing Left Unsaid, which was released in May 2022. Reading is a passion for both Godley and Sturgeon, with the latter often taking to social media with recommendations. In an interview with The National, Godley explained why she thought having a First Minister who loved books could only be a positive thing. She devours books the way I devour books, so I'm looking forward to this and I'm hoping she enjoys it, she said. To have a First Minister who's very much a voracious reader is important. I mean, when you look at Trump, you know he's not even had a colouring book. The comedian fondly remembers a childhood filled with books, citing Shettleston Library as a place of significance for her. She said, I think it's an amazing rite of passage to go to a bookshop and pick your own, rather than one bought for you. I couldn't afford books when I was wee, so all the books I got were at jumbo sales or in the Barras, or in Shettleston Library, which is very important to me. Godley adds that her own tastes are very eclectic, and that she currently listens to audiobooks as her eyes are impacted by the chemotherapy she is receiving. I probably listen to 5 different books a week, so I do a lot of thriller and crimes, but I also do love a good love book, a Jenny Colgan, a cupcake cafe that takes the stress of everything sometimes. However, there's a couple of lines she won't cross. I don't like science fiction or historical fiction. I'm not a fan of the paranormal or supernatural. And don't even expletive deleted, start me on vampires and zombies. None of that expletive deleted, TE. My husband and daughter Ashley are fans of Neil Gaiman, quite rightly so, Terry Pratchett, quite rightly so, and they've always liked that. As soon as I listen and it's like the third sector in space or something, I just can't suspend my disbelief. She adds that she thinks comedians in particular love audiobooks because they're constantly on the road driving. The event with Nicola Sturgeon will take place on May the 26th at 7:45pm in the Glasgow Royal Concert Hall. The pair have a fun history, with Godley well known for her Frank Get the Door videos, in which she would provide humorous voiceovers of Sturgeon's speeches. Tickets for the event are available at glasgowlive.org.uk. And that piece was an exclusive by Adam Robertson. From the National, Tuesday the 23rd of May 2023, from the Culture section. Exclusive. Leslie Riddoch to tour Scotland to promote new book, Thrive. Report by Adam Robertson. Broadcaster and independence campaigner Leslie Riddoch is to tour Scotland to promote her new book, Thrive. The book focuses on the case for Scottish independence and how this existed even before devolution and a Scottish government led by the SNP. Speaking to the National, Riddoch said, "It's not trying to pull rabbits from hats with new insights into currency, deficit and borders. It does humbly suggest these challenges have been dealt with by every single country that has ever become independent, but they didn't get independent by focusing exclusively on problem solving. What's the positive case for independence, and what are the deep-seated and long-cultivated doubts about our own capacity to govern ourselves that stop many Scots embracing independence?" The first event is due to be hosted by the Dundee and Angus Independence Group and will take place on June the 6th at Discovery Point at 7pm. Tickets are available at eventbrite.co.uk. Group member Jane Phillips said, "What we're trying to do is to get people to think big, and that's basically what the book is about. It's this idea of why are we not believing in ourselves? We have all it takes to thrive, so it kind of chimed with our feeling as an independence group. We feel we can do it. We're trying to bring people to continue the conversation and have a bit of faith in ourselves." Here's a list of other events. Fort William, June the 9th, Kilmalny Community Centre. Inverness, June the 10th, Spectrum Centre. Ellen, Aberdeenshire, June the 12th, Buchan Hotel. Perth, June 15th, AK Bell Library. Edinburgh, June 22nd, Toppings. Maybole, June 25th, Carrick Centre. Castle Douglas, June 29, June Fullerton Theatre. For more information, go to Riddoch's website www.leslieriddoch.com. Riddoch says she wrote Thrive in 3 months flat, but that she is looking forward to speaking to Scots across the country about the end product. She added, "Writing Thrive has been uplifting but also a massive slog. I developed agonising sciatica, probably because I was sitting in a library for 6 hours at a time during January and February. A wee note to everyone else, the body does not like to sit typing 6 hours at a time. But since Thrive dwells on the incredible capacity that sits relatively untapped within the Scottish population, a capacity for self-government demonstrated in every community project and buyout, it was a very upbeat book to write. Unless you actually meet people who share your outlook all over Scotland, It's possible to believe you're on your own, believing Scotland can do better as an independent, energy-rich, progressive North Atlantic state. You're not, and I hope Thrive 2 proves it. And the article was an exclusive by Adam Robertson.
The National News on Wednesday the 24th of May. Damning report for Police Scotland. An article written by Gregor Young. Police Scotland officers and staff have told of hearing racism, sexism and homophobia from their colleagues, a report into the culture of the force has found. And the review group set up 2 years ago found instances of poor behaviour being known and seen in plain sight, with no action being taken, and that people were being punished for raising issues or concerns. The report, said to be discussed at the Scottish Police Authority tomorrow, reads, "There was a widespread view that while discriminatory attitudes were far from a thing of the past in Police Scotland, there had been a marked shift over the past decade. However, our interviews with both key interviewees and divisional staff revealed instances of ongoing discrimination against minoritised communities, including first-hand accounts of racism, sexism and homophobia." The findings come in the first of 2 interim reports this year into the force by the Equality, Diversity, Inclusion and Human Rights Independent Review Group, which was set up by Police Scotland in 2021. Its final report will be published in 2024. Tomorrow, the Scottish Police Authority will be told of the findings by Robin Ifla, the chair of the Independent Review Group. It will come on the same day Police Scotland will reveal to the meeting that thousands more officers and staff will be enlisted onto a mandatory programme to help stamp out offensive banter and so-called canteen culture from the force. The review into the culture of Police Scotland comes a decade after it was created, when the country's 8 forces were merged into a single service. And it also comes as it deals with the ongoing Sheku Bayu inquiry, which is investigating whether race was a factor in the trainee gas engineer's death in 2015, after he was restrained by police and after women who worked in the police spoke out about their experiences of misogyny. The Independent Review Group's report said there was a constant stream of news about the Metropolitan Police Service and that there was a general acknowledgement that Police Scotland was far from immune from the issues raised. And the report said there was a degree of scepticism and even outright fear about raising concerns at all, either informally or formally, because it can just lead to the person being moved and the issue being avoided. It added that people were punished for raising the concerns and were sidelined within teams or moved to a less convenient location. The 21-page review said, "We also heard of poor behaviour being known and seen in plain sight, with no action being taken, a vicious circle of the personnel affected not having the confidence to report concerns, peers not speaking up and managers not taking action, exacerbated where the concern relates to a manager." Deputy Chief Constable Fiona Taylor said, "As part of our Policing Together programme, we're investing to give every police leader the skills and tools they need to build effective teams which live our values, and we're improving our knowledge and learning on inclusion. Because of policing's position of trust and authority in society, we're held to high standards, and through rigorous recruitment, vetting, prevention and conduct measures, our vigilance has never been stronger." An article written by Gregor Young. The National News on Wednesday, the 24th of May. Douglas Ross paid more than £11,000 for assistant referee role this season. An exclusive article written by Abby Garton-Crosby. Douglas Ross has been paid more than £11,000 for his 3rd job as an assistant referee over the current football season, the National can exclusively reveal. The Scottish Tory leader returned to running the line in July last year, after more than 18 months out injured, and has raked in cash from 31 different matches during the 2022-2023 season so far. Mr Ross logged a combination of match fees and expenses, claiming £4.95 on top of his pay for the match between Elgin City and Queen of the South in July 2022, the first game he refereed following his return. The MP for Murray and MSP for the Highlands and Islands has come under fire for his additional work as a linesman. He previously had to apologise for missing a VJ Day memorial to officiate a Kilmarnock vs St Johnstone match in 2020. And now we can reveal that the Scottish Tory leader has been paid a total of £11,490.57 for 31 matches in the 2022-2023 season. Mr Ross was paid £6,454 in match fees and £4,147.65 in expenses by the Scottish Football Association, according to both his MSP and MP register of interests. There were also 2 matches, St Johnstone vs Hibs and Dundee United vs Ross County, which Mr Ross had logged on his MP register but not at Holyrood. The Tories said there are differences between the procedures for both parliaments, with Westminster allowing the declaration of expected fees, while Holyrood only allows payments already made. He was paid £445 for both games. Mr Ross's most lucrative matches were Kilmarnock vs Hibs, where he was paid £735.75. Also in the list was St Mirren vs Livingston, Motherwell vs Hibernian and Motherwell vs Rangers. During a Scottish Cup clash between Celtic and St Mirren, the Green Brigade group unfurled a huge banner while the opening goal of the game was checked by VAR. It read, "VAR decision, Douglas Ross is a C," with 3 asterisks. Mr Ross was paid £649.20, £380 in match fees and £269.20 in expenses for running the line at this game. His smallest earners were the Elgin City vs Queen of the South game in 2021, where he was paid £110.95 and £171.35 each for Peterhead vs Edrionians and Peterhead vs Montrose. The Scottish Tory leader was paid the higher rate of a £445 match fee for 7 games, but also logged 9 games where the match fee was £173 and 7 where the fee was £107. Gillian Mackay, the Scottish Greens spokesperson for sport, told The National, "While our MSPs are all focused on helping to run the country, Douglas Ross is running the line at football games. The UK government is consistently being caught offside, always scoring own goals, and it's clear from the most recent polling that for the Tories, the electorate think it's all over." Mr Ross has previously been exposed for not declaring £7,000 worth of earnings from 16 football games and was forced to apologise in November 2021 after he failed to register a 17th match where he was paid £445. The Scottish Tory leader did, however, manage to remember to claim almost £93 on the same day through his MP expenses. Previously, Mr Ross was reported to the Scottish Football Association for brazenly attempting to use his football connections to woo voters. Mr Ross is paid £86,584 for his role as an MP. He gets a third of the £67,662 MSP salary. That's approximately £22,554 due to already being an MP, and donated his first monthly pay to a local charity. The Scottish Tory leader said he would continue to donate his MSP salary to good causes. He made no assertions about his pay as a linesman, however. A Scottish Conservative spokesperson said, "Douglas has declared all these earnings in line with parliamentary guidelines, and the recent games that are outstanding on the MSP register will be updated on time." An exclusive article written by Abby Garton-Crosby. The National Politics on Wednesday the 24th of May. Inflation rate falls below double figures, but food costs remain high. An article written by Adam Robertson. Inflation has eased to its lowest level since March last year, although remained higher than expected, with prices still soaring. The Office for National Statistics said that the Consumer Prices Index inflation fell to 8.7% in April, down from 10.1% in March, as last year's energy price hikes were not repeated. It marks the first time inflation has been in single digits since last August, although it was higher than forecast by economists, who had penciled in a drop to 8.2% in April. Commenting on the figures, the SNP's economy spokesperson Stuart Hosey said, "Any slight dip in the UK's sky-high inflation is to be welcomed, but prices are still soaring, and the cost of living under Westminster control is still far too high for many families who were already struggling to get by after 13 years of Tory cuts, Brexit and economic mismanagement." Under the Tories, the majority of families in the UK are worse off as wages fall behind the increasingly unaffordable cost of food, housing, bills and everyday essentials, showing exactly why Scotland needs to escape Westminster control as an independent country. Despite the fall in the rate of Food Consumer Prices Index inflation, costs remain high. It fell to 19.3%, down only slightly on March's eye-watering 19.6% figure. Chancellor Jeremy Hunt said, although it is positive that it is now in single digits, food prices are still rising too fast. So, as well as helping families with around £3,000 of cost of living support this year and last, we must stick resolutely to the plan to get inflation down. The steep fall in the Consumer Prices Index reflects last April's sky-high rise in energy bills dropping out of the calculation, with the energy price cap having jumped higher a year ago as wholesale prices rocketed after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Last April, the energy price cap soared by 54% to £1,971. But this year the energy price guarantee has been kept at £2,500 since last October. Ofgem is set to confirm on Thursday that energy prices will fall sharply for households in July, when the current energy price guarantee comes to an end. Forecasters at Cornwall Insight are expecting the price cap to fall to £2,053.77, below the energy price guarantee for the first time since it was introduced last October. But inflation has been stubbornly higher than predicted, with the rate of Food Consumer Prices Index the second highest for more than 45 years. Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves said, "As bills keep surging, families will be worried food prices and the cost of other essentials are still increasing." The Bank of England's top bosses admitted to MPs on Tuesday that it made errors in its forecasting of UK inflation, but Governor Andrew Bailey insisted that inflation had turned the corner. It predicted earlier this month that inflation would fall to 5.1% in the fourth quarter of 2023, narrowly seeing the government hit its target to halve inflation by the end of the year. April's big drop in the rate of inflation may take some of the pressure off the bank to keep increasing interest rates, now at 4.5%. But Samuel Toombs at Pantheon Macroeconomics said it was too small a drop for the Monetary Policy Committee to stop hiking in June. The latest data also showed the Consumer Prices Index measure of inflation, including housing costs, fell to 7.8% in April from 8.9% in March, while the Retail Prices Index slowed to 11.4% from 13.5% in March. An article written by Adam Robertson. The National News on Wednesday, the 24th of May. The RNLI rescues a 72-year-old trapped on a remote Scottish cliff. An article written by Xander Elliots. A 72-year-old hill walker had to be rescued by a lifeboat crew after he was stranded on a remote cliff ledge for more than 24 hours. The RNLI crew from Kyle of Lochalsh set sail at around 1:20 on Monday afternoon after the UK Coast Guard received a call from the pensioner saying he was trapped in the Western Highlands in the Kinlochhourn area, widely regarded as one of the most inaccessible wilderness in the UK. The crew took the Glenelg mountain rescue team on board on the way and dropped them off at the head of Loch Hourn to start their search, then headed back out onto the water to re-establish contact with the Coast Guard. The crew was sent new information on the walker's location and picked the rescue team up, then received a further update from the Coast Guard saying the man could see the lifeboat but could not signal to it as it was too far away. The group began a systematic search of the area and located the hill walker trapped on a small ledge just above the waterline, where he had been stuck since Sunday lunchtime. They eventually managed to reach the pensioner and get him on board, then made their way back to Carnarvon-Loch-Halsh, where he was reunited with his family at around 7:30 in the evening. A Kyle RNLI spokesman said, "This gentleman is an experienced walker who had unfortunately become trapped in an impossible situation, unable to go forward or back. Due to the location, he had no mobile signal from the time he had become trapped until Monday lunchtime, when he noticed he had a very weak one. He was then able to get in touch with the emergency services, who launched a search and rescue operation. We regularly train with other rescue agencies, and by working well with everyone involved, we were able to return him back to his family safely." An article written by Xander Elliots. The National News on Wednesday, the 24th of May. North Sea workers set for more strikes. An article written by Lucy Garcia. Around 1,650 North Sea offshore contractors will begin 2 new rounds of 48-hour strike action in what a trade union said is the biggest walkout in the sector so far. The workers are striking in an increasingly bitter dispute over jobs, pay and conditions in the offshore sector, Unite said. The union says BP and Shell recorded historic profits of a combined £11.7 billion in the first quarter of 2023. Offshore workers also walked out in April and May. The latest strike will hit oil giants including BP, Shell and Repsol. Contractors across 5 companies, including Bilfinger UK Limited, Stork Technical Services and Sparrows Offshore Services, will walk out from 6:30am on June the 1st until 6:29am on June the 3rd, and then again from 6:30am on June the 8th until 6:29am on June the 10th. Around 600 Bilfinger contractors on 3 rigs rejected new pay offers, Unite said. Some 200 Bilfinger contractors working on BP and Repsol assets will also join the strike, as will around 650 Stork offshore members, along with 200 offshore workers employed by Sparrows. Unite General Secretary Sharon Graham said, "With the support of their union Unite, an army of 1,650 offshore workers are taking the fight to multi-billion oil and gas corporations. The latest rounds of strike action in June will see the biggest group of offshore workers to date taking strike action. Unfettered corporate profiteering at the expense of our members will not go unchallenged. Unite is determined to deliver better jobs, pay and conditions in the offshore sector, and deliver we will." John Boland, Unite's industrial officer, said, "Our members deserve a much bigger share of the bonanza profits being recorded by oil and gas operators than the real terms pay cuts currently being offered. Around 1,650 members across the companies we are in dispute with remain determined and fully focused on securing a better deal. Whether it's over delivering improved pay, fairer and safer working rotas or holidays, Unite has one simple message for the contractors and operators. We will stand up for our members, and in the end we will win." An article written by Lucy Garcia.
From the National, Wednesday the 24th of May 2023, from the Culture section, Glasgow loans rare orchids to Chelsea Flower Show after customs issues. Report by Anna Tagliati. Rare orchid species from Glasgow's Botanic Gardens are among those on display at a prestigious flower show after the city stepped in to save the day following issues at customs. An exhibition stand at the Chelsea Flower Show, which began this week, includes rare orchids, ferns, begonias and other plants on loan from Glasgow City Council. They're part of a stand by JP Writing Company of Florida and Grow Tropicals, highlighting the vital role orchids play as indicators of the health of wider ecosystems. Plants loaned to the exhibit include a resurrection fern, which goes alongside the Florida ghost orchid in swamps in the wild, and Angracium podocalycalis, which has tiny flowers smaller than a thumbnail. Glasgow's Botanic Gardens were gifted a huge collection of orchids by Isabelle Lacroix of the Royal Orchid Society in 2008. Christine Nicholson, orchid propagator at Glasgow's Botanic Gardens, said, "It was great to be asked to supply plants for Chelsea, which is world renowned and features the best growers and designers from around the globe. It is very exciting and I can't wait to see photos of the completed exhibition stand. We were asked to help when some plants for the display got delayed at customs, and we were delighted to be able to assist. The plants will be returned to Glasgow when the Chelsea Flower Show closes. Visitors can also learn about the efforts of a global conservation team protecting the Florida ghost orchids. The show will end on May the 27th. And that report was by Anna Tagliati. From the National, Wednesday the 24th of May 2023, from the Culture section, Netflix password sharing clampdown begins in the UK. Report by Joshua Serrell. Netflix has begun its clampdown on password sharing in the UK, with emails being sent to customers who are sharing their accounts with people outside their household. The streaming giant said a Netflix account was for use by one household, and those wanting to share theirs must pay $4.99 to do so. It comes after the company, which has lost subscribers amid stiffer competition and rising inflation, began a crackdown on account sharing last year in countries including Chile, Costa Rica and Peru. On Tuesday, Netflix posted a statement online which read, "Starting today, we will be sending this email to members who are sharing Netflix outside their household in the United Kingdom. A Netflix account is for use by one household. Everyone living in that household can use Netflix wherever they are, at home, on the go, on holiday, and take advantage of new features like transfer profile and manage access and devices. We recognise that our members have many entertainment choices. It's why we continue to invest heavily in a wide range of new films and TV programmes, so whatever your taste, mood or language, and whoever you're watching with, there's always something satisfying to watch on Netflix." An attached screenshot of the email detailed ways customers could share their accounts. These included allowing users to transfer a profile to a new membership that they pay for, or buying an extra member for the price of £4.99 extra per month. Netflix has changed its tune since joking on Twitter that love is sharing a password, as it was quickly expanding in the UK in 2017. Netflix is also set to end its DVD rental service this year. DVD.com has been operated by Netflix for the past 25 years, but the streaming giant announced late yesterday that they would be shipping their final discs on September the 29th, 2023. Netflix co-CEO Ted Sarandos said the service had changed the way people watch shows and movies at home, and had paved the way for the shift to streaming. But he said it was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain the service as the business continues to shrink. Sarandos added, "From the beginning, our members loved the choice and control that direct-to-consumer entertainment offered, the wide variety of the titles and the ability to binge-watch entire series. DVDs also led to our first foray into original programming, with Red and Vote entertainment titles including Sherry Baby and Zach Galifianakis live at the Purple Onion. We feel so privileged to have been able to share movie nights with our DVD members for so long, so proud of what our employees achieved, and excited to continue pleasing entertainment fans for many more decades to come. To everyone who ever added a DVD to their queue or waited by the mailbox for a Red Envelope to arrive, thank you." And that article was by Joshua Serrell. From the National, Thursday the 25th of May 2023. From the news section, Church of Scotland, unwise to take position on independence. Report by James Walker. The Church of Scotland has decided it would be unwise to take a corporate position on Scottish independence and on whether a new referendum should be held. The General Assembly reaffirmed a policy position to remain impartial, which was taken 10 years ago. Commissioners endorsed a recommendation brought forward by the Faith Impact Forum, which acknowledged that church membership was made up of people who are passionate supporters of independence, passionate defenders of the Union, and many who are undecided. A report to the General Assembly stated, "The Forum believes it would be unwise for the Church to take a corporate position for or against independence at this time. If the Church were to express an opinion on the highly politicised and controversial debate about whether or not there should be a referendum, or if the next UK Parliament election should or should not be considered a de facto referendum, there is a real risk of alienating a large section of society and impairing the mission of the Church. It is also likely to severely impede our role as an institution that builds bridges across the constitutional and party political divides, and our role in society as a safe place that puts the highest interests of the people above the political rifts of the day." Speaking after General Assembly Commissioners reaffirmed the policy, Reverend Karen Hendry, convener of the Faith Impact Forum, said, "The Church has an important civic role to play in the debate about Scotland's future, in terms of helping the nation think about its values, hopes and vision. Impartiality does not mean neutrality or non-interest. On the contrary, we seek to provide spaces for constructive dialogue and to help people recognise that we have more in common than that which divides us." In line with the position taken by the General Assembly 10 years ago, we have reaffirmed our position of impartiality on the question of whether Scotland should become an independent country. This allows us to build bridges and hold honest conversations with political movements on both sides of the divide, to remind them that despite their differences, they must always seek the highest interest of the people. Our position of impartiality reflects the fact that it will be members and ministers of the Kirk who hold contrary views in this question. And that piece was by James Walker. From the National, Thursday the 25th of May 2023, from the news section, Cornell University professor gives currency advice on SNP policy, by multimedia journalist James Walker. A leading law professor has said that an independent Scotland would need its own currency and central bank. Speaking on Scotonomics, Robert Hockett, a law professor at Cornell University in New York, added that it might have to retain some kind of loose connection to the Bank of England and to the British pound. Host William Thompson asked the Ivy League professor what he thought of the current Scottish Government plans to leave the Bank of England in charge of all monetary policy after Scottish independence. Thompson asked, "Scotland's independent and it wants to have a new use for currency, and it wants much more state involvement. Could Scotland do this as an independent country whilst using the current British pound and having the central bank in England as our central bank?" Hockett responded, "I frankly think that Scotland would have to form its own central bank and would have to have its own currency. It might retain some kind of a loose connection to the Bank of England and to the British pound, just for the sake of maybe not seeming too radical a severance at one time. But essentially, what you would need is full Scottish monetary autonomy, and that, in turn, would not be compatible with the Governor of the Bank of England being able to determine or call the shots. I think what you want is to be able to engage autonomously in what I call money modulation on the one hand, and money allocation on the other hand. That means you would have to be able to determine the quantity of money in relation to the quantity of goods and services that money can command. That's a modularity task. And you'd have to be able to probe the direction in which the credit component of the money supply, which is virtually all of it, would flow. You couldn't be letting the Bank of England be determining that either. So, in that sense, I think you really can't have a full viable sovereign policy without having a sovereign currency that is issued and administered by a sovereign central bank. In October 2022, the Scottish Government laid out its plans to keep using sterling after a yes vote until certain criteria are met allowing for the transition to a new Scottish pound. Dr Ian Hardy, a senior lecturer at the University of Edinburgh, told The National afterwards that this was not a good place to be and that the majority of the Scottish Government's criteria for setting up a new currency should be met by the point of independence anyway. And that report was by James Walker. From the National, Thursday the 25th of May 2023, from the news section, Ian Livingston, Police Scotland is racist, sexist and misogynistic, by Athena Boner. The Chief Constable of Police Scotland has acknowledged the force is racist, sexist, misogynistic and discriminatory. At a meeting of the Scottish Police Authority on Thursday morning, Cyril Livingston said, "It is right for me to clearly state that institutional racism, sexism, misogyny and discrimination is a reality for Police Scotland. Publicly acknowledging these issues exist institutionally is essential to our absolute commitment to champion equality and becoming an anti-racist service. Prejudice and bad behaviour without policing, as highlighted by court and conduct cases, variously independent reviews, and by listening to our own officers and staff over recent years, is rightly of great concern and is utterly condemned." Condemning police prejudice, Livingston noted that this acknowledgement is the first step to ensuring the force becomes anti-racist and earns the community's trust. He further said that acknowledging institutional racism within policing should act as a catalyst for change. Livingston said, "Recognition that institutional racism exists within Police Scotland is a key step, a fundamental step towards being an inclusive service which champions equality for all the people of Scotland. It is the right thing to do and will make policing in Scotland even more effective in keeping people safe." His comments follow a recent report from an independent review group which uncovered ongoing discrimination against minoritised communities, including racism, sexism and homophobia, in Police Scotland. The Scottish Police Authority report states that it has also heard a degree of scepticism and even outright fear from staff concerned about raising the issues informally or formally. It says that some people have been punished for speaking out, for instance by being sidelined or moved to a less convenient location. Referring specifically to the cases of Rona Malone and Sheku Bayo, the report stated a general acknowledgement that Police Scotland was far from immune from the issues raised. Former Officer Malone was awarded nearly £1 million by Police Scotland last year, following a sex discrimination case in which she described as absolute boys' club culture. Bayo, who was sustained by 6 police officers, died in police custody in Kirkcaldy 8 years ago. The inquiry into the circumstances of his death is ongoing at Capitol House in Edinburgh to determine whether race was a factor. The Chief Constable has been in the role since 2016 and announced he will step down in August later this year. And that story was by Athena Boner.
That concludes this week's edition of the National Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q Review and tell your friends about our service.